We're here today set for our status hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom. We are live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take everybody's announcements first.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Marissa Herrera is my permanency specialist. We're present, ready.
William Taylor for the mother, Harley Lynch. She is present with me, and we are ready.
Stacy Zabala on behalf of Tommy.
All right, then Ms. Herrera, we'll get an update from you.
Since the court report was filed, we did move Tommy's placement out of the kinship home that he was in. The kinship caregiver had allowed the paternal grandmother to babysit during the weekend of April 27th and 28th, and the paternal grandmother took Tommy to Sonic, where Harley works, and allowed unauthorized access to her and Tommy both days. And so we couldn't allow the paternal grandmother as a supervised transportation for her anymore, and so placement put in a discharge. He's now in a foster home in White Deer, and he's doing pretty well. He's adjusting. Miss Lynch and Mr. Dickinson have received their family plans, and Miss Lynch has signed hers and initiated a lot of her services, and she's doing well.
All right. Then Mr. Taylor.
Yes, I would have some questioning for Ms. Herrera. There's currently an investigation going on with regard to some bruising of the child. Is that correct?
During the parent-child visit on Friday, Miss Lynch did notice a couple of bruises on Tommy, and so we did look into it. Our CCI went out yesterday, and they talked to Tommy, and they are ruling out that investigation, and they don't have any concerns for the bruising.
The bruising was considerable, was on his back and on his leg. Is that correct?
There was a couple spots on his back and one behind each leg.
And this occurred while he was in his prior placement rather than his current placement. Is that correct?
We're not sure when the bruising occurred.
That's not a concern. Haven't determined. You haven't made that determination. Is that what you're telling me?
I have not made that determination. He's been in this placement since May 9th. So for there to be bruising still there, I would think that it happened in this recent placement, not his prior placement, but I'm not sure.
You said he's doing well. The prior placement, I believe that was an aunt of, was that an aunt of his or an aunt of the mother?
I believe it's a paternal aunt of Tommy.
Paternal aunt, okay. That placement reported he had a lot of bad behavior acting out. Is that correct?
He does have some concerning behaviors.
And that escalated after the Ms. Powers' contact with him stopped and his mother's visitation decreased?
We haven't decreased his mother's visitation.
Okay. But it has been reported by that placement that his behaviors increased. Is that correct?
No, they're consistent with the same behaviors he had prior.
And his current placement has reported that his behaviors have been pretty bad also. Is that correct?
He has the same behaviors, yes.
And that's kind of inconsistent with your statement that he's doing well. Is that correct?
He's doing well as if his needs are all being met, but he is adjusting.
He is adjusting.
Yes.
Explain to me what you mean by that.
Well, he's changed placements, and so there's going to be an adjustment period. He was with family, and now he's not with family. And so he's going to have to adjust to the routines and schedules that this foster home has.
And his current placement has reported that since during the time she's had him, his behaviors have actually increased.
No.
That's not correct?
No.
Okay. How old is Tommy?
I'm sorry?
How old is Tommy?
He just turned 4.
Just turned 4. And has it been determined how the bruising occurred?
No. I do have an incident report that he fell. I received that incident report on Friday as well. He fell at 10 in the morning that day.
And falling put bruises on his back and on his leg?
That's the incident report that I received.
When did you learn about the bruising?
At the visit on Friday. The family support worker had messaged me and told me about the bruising that Harley spotted, and I asked for him to send me pictures.
If I may have a moment with my client, Your Honor, just briefly.
Sure.
Do you have pictures of the bruises with you?
Yes, I do.
Can you show them, please?
On my camera?
Ms. Rarick, can you pull them up on the computer you're on, and then we can do a share screen?
Yes.
Judge, if we're going to show bruising of the child, I'd ask to go off YouTube.
I'm sorry, Mr. Trout, can you repeat that?
I was making a motion that if we're going to show pictures of injuries to the child or bruising to the child, I'd ask to go off of YouTube.
I would agree with that, Your Honor.
I agree as well.
All right. Protect the privacy of the child. We're going to stop the live stream and close the courtroom, and I will open that back.
So I share my screen right now.
Give it just a minute, Marissa.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, y'all. I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, I'm going to close the courtroom and I'll resume final in this case. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take everybody's announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We are present, ready, Your Honor.
Brooks Barfield for Stacy Thomas. We are present, and I have a motion to make, but I'll let everybody else make announcements first, Judge.
Lorena Lucero, on behalf of the alleged father, Ernesto Gonzalez, Your Honor, I'm present and ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of the children.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. Barfield.
Yes, Your Judge. After consulting with my client and based on circumstances that I believe are extenuating in this particular case, my client's instructed me that she would like me to ask for an extension based on extenuating circumstances, based upon the grounds that the children were recently removed from maternal grandmother's home where they had been placed for the majority, if not the entirety of this case, and that other relative placement would need to be looked at in regards to her sister. We'd like some time to maybe see if that home would be an appropriate place for the children. Also, my client advised that she is trying and continuing to work services. I believe we had a negative drug test the last time. Also, she said she received a copy of the service plan as of yesterday, but that she had some questions about it and really didn't have time to fully go over it with the caseworker. And therefore, I believe my client would need time to be able to understand and go over her safety plan. Therefore, we believe that there are extenuating circumstances necessitating an extension of this case before we proceed to a final hearing. And that's what we would be asking the court today based upon those grounds, Your Honor. Okay,
well, first of all, the case has already been extended. And this is just a setting that I made. The case was extended at the last setting on the final because we did not have a court reporter. And so obviously I have to have a reporter to do a final. So we were up against a dismissal date. So I extended the case at that time. So it's already an extension. The only extraordinary circumstances that I found at that time was the fact that we did not have a court reporter. It was not based, the extension was not based on a finding of extraordinary circumstances that, parents had worked virtually all their services, only lacked a few things. Parents had been in drug rehabilitation. I mean, all of the normal reasons why we might find extraordinary circumstances. As of just 2 weeks ago, my information was parents were, say, for instance, had been in contact with them. They hadn't been working services. I would specifically, I guess, ask, has Ms. Thomas gone to any kind of drug treatment? Completed any kind of outpatient, inpatient, anything for us, anything of that nature. So that's a question, I suppose, for Ms. Cantrell.
It'd be for Ms. Lane, Your Honor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
No, she has not at this time.
Has she completed any services at this time?
She attended one counseling session with Jennings, May 16th, 2023.
And nothing since then?
No, ma'am.
Is that same hold true with Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, and actually I have had no contact with him.
Is he
Stacy,
Is he still on bond?
yeah, somewhere.
Okay, Mr. Barfield, I mean, based on that, I'm going to deny what really would have been a motion for continuance, not extension, but the relatives can always be looked at. We're happy to do that, and there's nothing, nothing that once this case, I enter a final order that prevents us from continuing to look at family. We always do. So obviously we will continue to look at any, eligible, appropriate family members that have an interest in having placement of the children. And particularly in light of the fact that they were removed from the grandmother's home. And the basis of that was because of marijuana usage in the home. So we will continue to assure your client, we will continue to look at family. So, but
Yes, sir.
that motion for continuance is denied. So we're going to proceed today. So Mr. Trout, how many witnesses you have?
I believe I'll probably have up to about 5, Your Honor. Call Rodolfo Flores.
Mr. Trout, let me just ask you real quickly, and I hate to interfere with how you put your case on, but
Yes, ma'am.
is Mr. Leak here? Is he law enforcement?
He is, Your Honor, and if the court's okay with that, his testimony has more to do with kind of where we at in the case now, but if I can go ahead and put him on and let him go, I'm happy to do that.
I would greatly appreciate that. I hate to keep him waiting any longer than what we have to.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody else falls in a little bit different category in this situation than he does, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'd call Travis Leak then, Your Honor. And you are employed by Amarillo Police Department?
Yes,
And in what capacity are you employed by them?
I'm a detective in the Criminal Investigation Division, the Special Victims Unit.
Okay. Are you familiar with the mother involved in this case, Stacy Thomas?
Yes,
And how are you familiar with her?
I interviewed her on May 2nd, 2024.
And what was the reasoning for you interviewing her?
I was assigned a report of injury to a child and was working that case with Special Investigator Seth Sullivan.
And were you able to interview mother?
Yes,
And did Ms. Thomas make any statements to you as to current drug use?
Yes.
And what were those statements?
I was investigating that she had smoked meth around her children.
Okay. When were those occurrences allegedly happened?
She estimated that she smoked meth 10 times around her children, between the start around her mom's birthday, which had been January 20th, 2024, to the beginning of April 2024.
Okay. So about 4 months right there, she was admitted to smoking meth around the children?
Yes.
Okay. And did she say where that happened?
She said at her mom's house at 20.
Okay. And this was before the children were removed from that placement, to your understanding?
Yes.
And are there any, from those allegations, are there any charges going to be filed out of those?
Yes.
Okay. Have they been filed?
Yes.
Are you waiting for those charges to be accepted or denied?
I'm waiting for them to be reviewed. Yes.
Okay. And those charges were filed against the mother and the grandmother, or just the mother?
I filed charges against the mother, grandmother, and her stepdad.
Okay. All right. And to your understanding, the grandmother, or Ms. Thomas's mother and stepdad were placement for the children at that time?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you, Judge. Officer, when you came in contact with my client, was she arrested for any possession of drugs, or did she have any drugs on her person?
No.
Do you know if she tested positive for any drugs in her system?
I was supplied with a drug test from the Special Investigator Seth Sullivan after the fact.
And that drug test, was that drug test conducted after the fact, you said?
After my interview with her.
Okay. And was that the drug test? And was that drug test ordered by the police department?
No.
Okay. Who ordered that drug test?
That was with the Department of Family and Protective Services.
Okay. All right. Now, so is it your testimony here today that currently Stacey Thomas is not facing any new possession of controlled substance or any type of drug charges to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Now, in regards to the children, were you able to observe the children?
No.
Okay. So you were not able to observe if the children were harmed in any way. Is that correct?
Not personally.
Okay. All right. Have you done any follow-up investigation into this case?
What do you mean by that, sir?
In other words, you said you spoke to Stacey. Who else did you speak to in regards to this case?
I spoke to Linda Robertson and Christopher Evans Sr. and the Special Investigator Seth Sullivan and CPI Annalise Kendall.
Okay. Are they all law enforcement individuals or people working for CPS?
People working for CPS.
Okay. Other than those individuals, so primarily is the information that you received in regards to this case from second parties or third party information?
It's from CPS, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, not from your personal observations. That's all I'm trying to establish.
Just my interviews with Stacey, Linda, and Christopher Sr.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Lucero.
I don't have any questions for Sergeant Leak, Your Honor.
All right, and Ms. Zavala.
Just to clarify, Linda Robertson is the grandmother of the children, correct?
Yes.
And she was placement for the children?
Yes.
And when you said Christopher Senior, he is grandmother's husband, mom's stepdad.
Yes.
And Linda and Christopher were placement for the children, and you spoke to them directly.
Yes.
And you spoke to Stacy directly.
Yes.
So not all of your information came from CPS or some other investigator.
No.
Okay. I pass it.
Okay, Mr. Trout?
Real quick, Your Honor, Sergeant Lee, the basis for the charges is what mother stated to you, correct?
Yes.
Was there any other reason for those charges outside of that?
No.
You said you had received screens from the department, drug screens from the department.
Yes.
And was that just on mom or was that on children also?
It was on mom and children.
Okay. And were those screens concerning
Yes.
due to what was found in the screens?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, any further questions for Sergeant Lake?
No, Your Honor.
No further questions from me, Your Honor.
No further questions.
Nothing further.
All right, then is Sergeant free to leave us and go on about his day?
No
I have no
objection.
objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, Sergeant, thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate your patience. I know we were running a little behind, and so thank you very much. And you're free to go on about your days of business.
Thank you, Judge.
Thanks,
Okay.
Sergeant Lee.
Who's your next witness?
Call Rodolfo Flores, Your Honor.
Okay, before we do that, I do want to have a really quick bench conference with attorneys.
Yes, ma'am.
So, let's see. Might as well go back to one. Mr. Barfield, you and Mr. Trout can put yourselves back in there and I'll get everybody else in there. Okay, Ms. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your attorney wants to speak with you. I'm going to move you back to room 1. Or actually, you know how to put yourself back in there?
No.
Okay, I'm going to put you in room 2 and I'll move him to room 2. Okay.
Judge,
Yes, sir.
okay,
You want me to move her back in?
yeah, well, yeah, you can. And we may need to have another attorney bench conference.
Okay. Okay. Because Ms. Thomas and Mr. Gonzalez were sort of MIA for a portion of this case, you all have not mediated, and this court has a standing order requiring mediation. I know we've commenced our final, but at this time, I'm going to recess and allow you all the opportunity to mediate. Also, there's been some additional information about family. Mom has tossed out possibility of her sister being placement and I think her biological father. I don't know whether the department has ever even taken a cursory look at either of those individuals. Have they been on our radar at all as far as placement of the kids?
Yes, Your Honor. When we found the mother, she gave us her sister as an option at that point. We could not initiate a home study as she had an open CPS case at the time that has since closed. And so we have submitted to do a home study on her. at this time. She has not mentioned her father.
And Judge,
So-
did you want Casey back in here? Because I don't see her.
I did move her twice. I don't know why she's not rejoining. I just tried to move her again. I can't remove her. It's not moving her over, and I can't remove her from the whole proceeding and force her to log back in from there. I keep saying move to the main session, and she's not coming back over. Ms. Thomas, if you can hear me, I'm trying to send you a prompt to come back into the main session. If you will accept that, and if you can't do that, just log out and log back in.
There she is.
There she is. Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, let me kind of back up for a minute because we didn't realize we didn't have her back in. Okay. Normally, this court requires all cases to go to mediation before the final. I recognize that y'all did not do that in this case because your clients were kind of missing in action, so to speak. Because we have until November as far as the dismissal date, I'm going to go ahead and recess the final hearing and give you all the opportunity to mediate the case. Additionally, the information regarding Ms. Thomas's sister and her biological father have come to our attention about possible placement for the children. Ms. Thomas, before we got you back in here, Ms. Watson with St. Francis indicated that initially they couldn't look at your sister because she had an open CPS case, but that's been closed now, and so that they can initiate a home study on her. And then on your biological father, I'm not sure they have any information about him. Does he live in Texas?
Yes, he lives in Texas, but he's not in Amarillo. He lives in Round Rock Round
Okay.
Rock, I think.
Let me just ask you a couple quick things. Does he have any criminal history?
Not that I know of, no.
Do you know if he's ever had any child protective service history?
No, not that I know of.
Is he single, married, have family, any minor children?
He is, well, him and my mom just barely got divorced like a few months ago. But
Okay.
they've been separated since I was like 2 or 3.
Okay. All right.
But he has a girlfriend that he lives with. But as to minor children, my youngest sister is like, she's going to prom this year, so like 15 or 16.
That lives with him?
Oh, no, she doesn't live with him. She lives with her mother. She
Okay.
doesn't have any minor children that live with him.
Okay. All right. So, what I'd like for you to do is give his full name and contact information, to Ms. Lane, and so that she can make contact. He has to be willing. Have you talked with him about this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and he's willing to take all 3 children?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is, Ms. Watson, if you've actually initiated on the sister already?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Lane's turned in the paperwork. Actually, she did it yesterday.
Okay, so probably too late for me to expedite that one, but we could the one on the father. So, normally we try to do these home studies one at a time, but because we're pressed for time, I'm going to go ahead and order that we do both of them. So when we conclude today, Ms. Thomas, I'll take us off YouTube, and then you can provide his information to Ms. Lane just while we're here. We're looking at a reset date of July 11th for this final hearing. We have contacted a mediator on our list, Mr. Lambert. He's willing to do this on a really short fuse. He's just going to have to get the attorneys to agree to a date. So I would say that, it really needs to be mediated, before the 4th of July holiday, obviously, sometime. So early July. So that gives you all a little over 30 days to get it mediated, and then before trial. But since parents were unavailable to do that, and we've got a little bit of time left in the case, then I'm willing to just recess where we're at and give everybody the opportunity to do that. Because usually what you all come up with is better than rolling the dice, you know. So, okay. Anything else we need to take up before we go off the record, and then I'll stop YouTube and allow Ms. Thomas to give that information out.
The only thing I can probably ask this once we're off in recess or out, judges, if Ms. Thomas has any good contact information for Dad in this case, so we can try to get him to the mediation if we can do that. But if she does have that information, we can get it once we're off YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, then we will be in recess, set to resume this July 11th. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket, and mediate, say, before July 2nd. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream, and Amy will be off the record. That's the last thing that we had set on today's docket. So everybody else will be free to go except under finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. And we're live streaming, and we, excuse me, Ms. Taylor is making our record this morning. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Morning, Your Honor. This is Eugene Graff on behalf of Department of Family and Protective Services. We have Ms. Watson here on behalf of St. Francis, Ms. Molinax, the attorney ad litem for the child, CASA of the Rolling Plains, GAL for the child, and that's per Mr. Ellison. And we're here, as Your Honor indicated, on a permanency hearing after final order. I understand these are set every 30 days currently to check in on the status of Braden. And we have Ms. Watson standing in. I understand that Ms. Osante is no longer with the agency.
Okay, and Mr. Graff, you said 30 days, but this is an after final, and actually they're set every 6 months, unless we've got some kind of issues brewing, and then sometimes we'll set them every 90 days or even more frequently if we need to. Okay, Ms. Molinax, if you want to announce.
Aaron Molinax, attorney ad litem for the child, ready, Your Honor, and he is present with us today.
Okay, and CASA is also present with us today.
We are.
Okay, then. If we can just go ahead and have an update then on how everything's going with Braden.
Yes, ma'am. Braden was placed in a temporary placement on May 13th with Miss Lindsay. It is a step bed. So he's there for 14 days. He is doing very well in this placement. I talked to Miss Lindsay yesterday, who is the foster parent in that home. She says Braden has been very helpful. He's been very kind. He has asked if he can apply for a job, and since he has his documents, he was able to go and do that. I don't know if he's heard back yet, if he has an interview or if he's been offered a job yet. They are putting in for an extension to do another 14 days to see if he continues to do well. And then when I talked to her yesterday, if he does continue to do well, then we'll discuss maybe a permanent placement there for him until he ages out. He has talked to her about he does want to have a plan for when he turns 18, when he becomes an adult. They've been working on that a lot. He has indicated he wants to go to school and he'd like to be an engineer. Which is fantastic. I'm glad to hear that Braden is thinking about the future now. And the placement's son is an engineer, so he has a good resource to ask some questions of now to make those decisions in his life.
Okay, that sounds great. Braden, I'm glad you're thinking about those things right now, because it's never really too soon. And applying to colleges and everything needs to start, honestly, it'll need to start this year, so I'm glad you're thinking about it. And that sounds like a great goal for you. And I'm glad to hear you're doing so well at this placement.
Nothing but nice things to say about Braden and his behavior and his helpfulness.
I hope it's going to work out. I really do. Okay, Ms. Mullinax?
Your Honor, we weren't able to contact placement until this morning, but I got the same report from my office that he was doing very well in placement. So hopefully that'll work out for a permanent placement, because I know Braden needs to be able to stick somewhere. That last placement we hoped would work out, and it didn't, but we want Braden to succeed. So
Absolutely. Okay. Casa?
Yeah, it has been everything that I've talked with Miss Lindsay. We've chatted a few times now, talked with Braden a few times. Everything has gone really well. To Braden's credit, to be fair, he has always said, if I could just get into a home environment, things would start going a lot better. And Braden, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're in a home environment now. This is exactly what you've been looking for, and you're doing great there. I agree with everyone else. Anything we can do, I tried to make it clear in my court report, anything we can do to keep him there for the next 9 months, just get him to 18, I think would be absolutely fantastic. Another reason behind that too, Jamie and I, we've been working trying to figure out, once he turns 18, the supervised independent living situation, what that's going to be like. Though we were able to clarify that there aren't any laws or policies that make it impossible for him to go from an RTC into a SIL program. His chances of getting into supervised independent living are a lot better if he comes from a home environment. And I think especially what Braden has been through up to this point, the changes that we've seen, granted, it's still just the last couple weeks, and I know that Miss Lindsay and he were talking about the honeymoon period, and things are gonna fade in a bit, but if Braden can stick there and keep doing as well as he's been doing, I think we need to do absolutely everything we can to keep him there until he turns 18 and do everything we can to get him set up so that once he does turn 18, he can get moved into a SIL program.
Braden, I'll echo what Mr. Ellison is saying, because I think your odds of getting in an SIL are much greater if you're coming from this placement. And it sounds like, if things go well, then we can, it's from what Ms. Watson says, it sounds like it is entirely in the realm that we can keep you there. So, because an SIL by its nature, you have a great deal of independence at that point. You bear a lot of responsibility for yourself at that point. It's up to you to make sure you get to the doctor and the dentist, and that you take any meds that you may need, and that if you're going to school, that you get yourself up and have breakfast and get dressed and get out the door and get there on time. It's just like every other kid that goes off to college. Mom and dad aren't in the bunk next to you, setting your alarm for you and telling you what to do every minute. So, an SIL is, you're just, there are folks around to help you and to try to help guide you if you need some help, but they're not going to make those day-to-day decisions for you. So this is a great test run for you to kind of transition into that environment, I think. And I think, I think having a job right now is a great thing, and all of that will help you. So, okay. Braden, anything that you want to talk to us about today?
The job thing, y'all didn't know if I had an interview or not. I actually had my interview Monday.
Great.
And they said they were going to reach back out to me about when we're going to move farther. So I'm just waiting for a phone call.
Okay. Where are you interviewing?
It was Shoe Palace.
Okay. Great. All right. Driver's license. Does Braden have his driver's license yet? No? Is that anything we can work on, or are we just gonna have to wait till he turns 18?
As far
We
as I
need to
know, I
get him
mean,
stabilized.
yeah, go ahead, Tippy. Sorry.
Yeah, we need to get him stabilized in a placement, and then the PAL worker can help him get that done.
Okay. Another good reason to make this thing work. You know, so I know that's been difficult because you've had to move a lot, and you know, and you know, we all want to see you just put roots down and, you know, succeed. So I'm really, really excited for you. All right then. Anybody have anything else?
As always, Braden, if you've got, I mean, I've told you before, everybody that you're seeing on the screen right now, we're all rooting for you. This is the group of people. You don't always see us. You don't always know we're here, but we are all working on stuff behind the scenes, getting stuff figured out for you. So if you need anything at all, you reach out to us and let us know.
All right then. It's great to see you, Braden. And I just, you know, everybody just keep me posted on how things are going. So I'll see you all back for our next hearing. It's scheduled for September 25th of 2024, and that'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. So until then, we'll continue the department as permanent managing conservator, and we'll continue Braden's placement, I hope, till you turn 18. Okay. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all.
Good luck with your interview, Braden.
I'm so proud of that kiddo.
Yeah, sounds like he's doing great.
Yeah.
We are here today on a final. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. Also, it's enabled us to bring Mr. Frost in today, and Ms. Taylor is making our record, and we are live streaming. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Todd Albee on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I'm present, ready to proceed. I have Yolanda Novak, who is the St. Francis Ministries permanency specialist who's been handling this case, present, and we'll be calling her for testimony.
Bailey Sapien on behalf of Samantha White. My client is present and we're ready to proceed.
Sage Seal, attorney at Lottom, Your Honor, and I'm ready.
Bethany Stevens, attorney for the father, present and ready.
Okay, and Casa is also present today. All right. Mr. Alley, any announcements to make, or are we ready to call our first witness?
Judge, I don't anticipate that we're going to have a whole lot of contests today, but I would just proceed with testimony at this time, if it pleases the court.
Okay, all right. You can call your first witness.
Thank you. We would call Miss Yolanda Novak. Where is Daniel currently placed?
He's currently placed in an RTC in Houston area.
And how long has he been in that particular placement?
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I wasn't ready. Hold on just a moment. I'm sorry. He's been there since November 4th.
And has that placement made efforts to quell some of Daniel's behaviors up until this point?
Yes, and he was doing well until recently.
And how old is Daniel?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
How old is Daniel?
He's 13, sir.
Recently, however, Daniel's behaviors have escalated to a point where he's no longer welcome at his current placement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
He's been running away sometimes multiple times in a day.
Correct.
So we have to find a new placement for him soon.
Yes, the removal date for their notice is May 30th.
Daniel's mother is Samantha Butler.
Correct.
And where does Miss Butler currently reside?
In Leonard, Texas.
And Leonard, Texas is in what we we from the Texas Panhandle consider East Texas, correct?
Correct, Region 3.
All right. And recently, Miss Butler has begun having some unsupervised visits with Daniel.
Correct, she has.
And can you tell us how those visits have been going?
The visits, the she's reported have went well until this last one that they had at the beginning of May. And she saw him on Saturday, and that visit went well, but she went to see him on Sunday before she left to tell him goodbye. And then Daniel, he just wanted to go home with her, and his behaviors have been escalating since then. But when she's had him, she has reported she's just had, typical behaviors with him, no explosive behaviors. She's been able to redirect him when she had him home over Easter, just normal behaviors, nothing severe like what he's been having at placement and at school.
Daniel's made it clear to you and to his support that part of the reason for issues at the RTC are because he really just wants to go home.
Correct.
Miss Butler was ordered to work services.
Yes, she was.
And has she completed the services she was ordered to work?
Yes, she is still working with Daniel with family therapy. They haven't been able to have a session since March. They had one scheduled for May 1st, but due to Samantha was present, counselor was present, Daniel wasn't present, and with his runouts, they haven't been able to reschedule one. But she's completed everything else, sir.
If I may interrupt, we have one scheduled for the 29th of this month.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Novak, Mark Frost is Daniel's father.
Correct.
And for the record, Mr. Frost is currently incarcerated.
Yes.
Do you know where he is incarcerated?
The unit.
Alfred unit.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Is it Gatesville?
Gatesville,
Okay.
Texas.
All right. So, and he has been pretty much incarcerated since the beginning of this case.
Yes.
So, even though he's been asked to work some services, it's been very difficult for him to comply with that due to his incarceration in Gatesville.
Correct.
Do you know what his release status is, if any?
I just seen parole and waiting on the answer.
Okay, Mr. Frost, just let her. She's the one under oath right now, so just yeah. If we need to know something like that, we will ask you. All right, Mr. Albee, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Novak. Do you know what Mr. Frost's release status is?
I do not.
Okay. Now, Daniel's been in care for how long?
Since November of 2022.
Do you feel like that it would be in Daniel's best interest at this time to be returned to his mother?
I do not.
You feel like it would be in Daniel's best interest at this time to be returned to his father? And I didn't hear you, Ms. Novak.
Sorry, no, sir.
Do you feel like it would be contrary to Daniel's general welfare to be returned to either parent today?
Yes.
And that it would not be safe for Daniel to return him to either parent today?
Correct.
Are you asking then that the court consider appointing the department as a permanent managing conservator of Daniel, so that we can continue working, trying to alleviate his behavior so that we can reunite him with his family?
Yes.
Now, part of that would be that we would seek placement in Region 3, which would be closer to Miss Butler?
Correct, we are.
Have you already put in for that placement?
We put in the request. We have not had a response back yet.
Now, because of Daniel's history, it may be difficult to find a placement for Daniel.
Correct.
Now, he has some history of being violent towards Miss Butler and to Miss Butler's other children. And then at the current placement, he's been, it's hard to keep him in home.
Correct.
But we are looking, and we want to continue increased visitations with Miss Butler. We want to continue family counseling. We just don't think that it would be safe to return Daniel to Miss Butler today.
Correct.
And though Mr. Butler has announced that he's had some parole hearings and he thinks that he may be getting close to parole, that doesn't mean that it would be safe to return Daniel to Mr. Butler today.
I'm not Mr. Butler.
Or excuse me.
I mean,
Frost
Mr.
today.
Frost. Correct, sir.
And I apologize, Mr. Frost. It's something that happens to me sometimes. So anyway, you're asking the court to continue the department as permanent managing conservator of Daniel at this time.
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Sapien?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Stevens?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just real briefly. So since the placement has put in their notice, you said that the child will be going to a group home for now?
We don't have a new placement for him at this time. We are looking, we've put in a request since his current placement did put in a 14-day notice on him that will be up on May 30th. So our placement team is looking for a new placement for Daniel. We're looking at in the area that is closer to mom, but we have not found one yet.
Okay. And I've been concerned just about all of the runaways of this child. Is there some sort of placement or home that y'all have that has specialized training in helping prevent runaways?
Our placement coordinator, they send it out to all types of placements. So they will be included in that search, but we have not had a response of anyone accepting him yet.
Okay. What will happen if no one does accept him?
St. Francis does a child watch, and we will pick him up and have him in child watch until we find placement for him.
And what does child watch mean?
Child watch is St. Francis would transport him to it'd be the Amarillo area, and we have a visitation house that he can stay at that has a bed, bathroom, shower, and we will provide round-the-clock supervision until placement is found.
Is it a lockdown facility?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so he could still run away in the middle of the night from there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does mom want him to come home?
Yes, ma'am.
And he wants to go home?
Yes, ma'am.
And a while back, I think 2 hearings ago, we had some testimony that when the child was receiving letters from his dad, he was acting a little bit better, correct?
I believe so. I don't remember exactly, but.
And in fact, we tried to get a Zoom visit for him with his father, correct?
Yes, we did. We did
but TDC,
try that.
TDC stood in the way of that, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
And Mr. Frost did resume writing letters to his son, is that right?
He did. I tried to send them to Daniel and they got returned to me. I missed the address somehow for his placement and they all got returned. So I have them to resend to him, but I didn't want to send him with the possibility of having new placement for him. So I have them ready to send when I know where to send them.
Is Daniel aware that you have letters that you're holding for him from his father?
No, I don't think he does.
Pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Seal?
Yolanda, do you believe that the current placement has exhausted all options in trying to keep Daniel from running away at this point?
I do.
And they have requested and held several meetings with all of Daniel's support group to request ideas as to how we thought we could maybe better that situation.
They have, yes.
And has Daniel expressed to you a desire to remain or stay in that placement?
he does not want to stay. He has stated that he, when I spoke to him, like he wanted to move that day, and I explained to him that that wasn't possible, that it's a process. I explained to him that we are looking for a new placement closer to mom. He agreed at that time to stay at placement and to stay in school, knowing that he would be moved closer to mom, but he wants to move yesterday.
And as soon as that meeting concluded, within less than 24 hours, he had already run away again. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you believe that Miss White is in the position currently for Daniel to return to her?
I am unsure.
And that's why you're asking for PMC to the department today, so that we can hopefully secure and kind of monitor the situation to make sure everybody is ready for this next step. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you believe that to be in Daniel's best interest?
I do.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Oh, Mr. Albee?
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Okay, does anybody have any further questions for Ms. Novak?
No, Your Honor.
All right then, Mr. Albee, you can call your next witness.
We'll rest, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Sakin?
Thank you, Judge. I'll call my client Samantha.
Okay, is your legal last name White or Butler?
Technically, it's both. My ID still says White, but my social security number says Butler. I'm just waiting to be able to get in the DMV to completely switch it over.
Which name?
Back to Butler.
Okay. All right, you may proceed, Ms. Sakin.
Thank you, Judge. Miss Butler, you are Daniel's mom, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you just hear all the testimony given by Miss Novak with St. Francis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Miss Stevens asked Miss Novak a question. And the question was if you wanted Daniel home. Do you recall that question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Miss Novak's answer was that you did want him home. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is that correct? Do you want him home?
Yes, ma'am. I definitely want him home. But at the same time, with him having two younger sisters, and definitely there being a past of him harming them, you know, I want to make sure that he is safe to come home, and that, you know, I'm not going to have to risk their safety over my wants and his wants to come home, if that makes sense.
So you would like him to come home. You want him to come home. He's your son, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But you have safety concerns.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you in agreement with what Mr. Alvey is asking for, which is the department be named permanent managing conservator at this time, and you be named a possessory conservator of Daniel?
I'm not quite exactly sure what those mean.
Okay. Are you okay with Daniel remaining at this time with the department?
Yes, ma'am, especially for him to get the help that he needs.
And are you okay continuing to have scheduled visitations with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you okay with the department continuing to make decisions for Daniel regarding his well-being and his placement?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you agree with Ms. Novak's testimony that you did complete your services?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you also in agreement that you would like for Daniel to be moved closer to you if possible?
Yes, ma'am.
That you would like visits to be increased?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it also correct, and are you in agreement with Ms. Novak's testimony that your visits with Daniel do go well?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he having these explosive outbursts with you?
No, ma'am. No, not until that last Sunday. And even when he did start escalating, it wasn't directed towards me or family. He definitely showed that it was directed towards placement.
And were you present when he was escalating?
Not necessarily. We dropped him off and we got not even 2 blocks down the road after saying our goodbyes, and placement called me to let me know that he had taken off and that if I couldn't get him back to placement, that they were going to call law enforcement on him. I was able to talk to him, mind you, in the middle of the road for about 20 minutes before I was able to get him in the car and to go back to the placement. And then about 3 hours later, I was notified that he had taken off again.
So do you feel safe to continue having unsupervised visits with Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else, Ms. Butler, that you want this court to know or consider when making a decision today?
No, just that, when he for sure is ready to come home, that I am more than ready and always wanting him to come home. We just have to get him to the point where he's safe to come home.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. I'll pass the witness.
What's the longest that he has actually been at home for an in-home visit?
It was just over Easter weekend. He came Friday. We picked him up Friday morning and took him back Monday morning. It's about 72 hours.
No problems.
No, ma'am. I mean, we had, he wasn't perfect. No child is. So, we had little minor things, but nothing like what he's been doing at placement or what he has before.
No aggression to the siblings?
No, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Abbey, any questions for Ms. White?
Thank you, Judge. Ms. White, would you agree with me that part of the reason that Daniel is currently in care is because he had been in care of the department? We sent him home to you, and then he became pretty aggressive towards you and your daughters?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
And that if any fear you have concerning Daniel right now, that's what your fear is.
Yes, sir.
And you believe that Daniel's progressed this last year and a half, but you still have some concerns.
Yes, sir.
And you would like for the department to continue trying to put you and Daniel in a position that will make it work, including family counseling between you, Daniel, and your other daughters.
Yes, sir.
And for the record, you and Mr. Frost are no longer together. Y'all aren't anticipating living together when he's released from prison?
No, sir.
Thank you, Ms. White. I'll pass it with you, Cheryl.
Okay. Ms. Stevens?
Just very briefly. Ma'am, do you remember us talking about the fact that when he had contact with his dad, he was doing better? Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry?
She just passed the witness. Okay. Ms. Seal?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Butler, during the Easter visit, you mentioned that there were a few things that Daniel had issues with, but when those issues occurred, you were able to correct it. He took that correction and there weren't any retaliation for that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it was a positive response to that redirection or correction.
Yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Sapien, anything further?
I have nothing further, Your Honor, of this witness, and I have no further witnesses.
Okay. Do you rest then?
I will rest.
All right. Ms. Stevens?
Yes, Your Honor. I will call my client.
All right. You may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Frost, I need you to speak up just a little bit because it's hard to hear you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
That's perfect. Thank you. Now, you were saying that you just saw parole. How did that go?
I'm still currently waiting on the answer right now, ma'am.
Okay. And if you don't get it this time, when would you next be eligible?
In the next year.
And let's say that you never got parole. What is your date that you would be getting out approximately?
2069.
Okay. Now, you remember that we had talked about your child seems to do a lot better when you are writing to him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You remember that we tried to get a Zoom visitation for you and your son, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And TDC is the one that stood in the way of that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have been writing to him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's just that the prison changed how they do mail, so it's taking a little bit longer for it to get out and get to him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then we also heard testimony that there's a bunch of letters that he hasn't even received or doesn't know about at this time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Do you think that it's in his best interest to think that you have stopped writing?
In his best interest?
Yeah, is it in his best interest to not know you're still writing?
No, ma'am, it's not.
Okay. Now, if you were to get out, you understand you haven't been able to work your services, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But if you got parole, you'd be willing to do whatever it took to remain in your child's life. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And it seems that you are a positive influence since his behavior is better when you are in contact, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you hoping for your son?
That he'll go home and he won't follow my footsteps. That
And
he'll be a better person.
if you get out, do you intend to help him see that he does not want to follow in your footsteps?
Yes, ma'am. Even when I ride him, I tell him, man, it's not worth it. It's not this path that he's walking down is not. It's not cool.
So like the rest of us, you see that the path he's on is not a good one, right?
No, it's not.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Alvey, you have any questions for Mr. Frost?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Sagan?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Seal?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Stevens, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you rest.
Yes, Your Honor. Sorry, my mute button, it keeps sticking for some reason.
No problem. All right then, Ms. Seal, any witnesses to call today?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Seal, do you have a recommendation to make?
Your Honor, in speaking with Daniel, he is still very adamant that he does want to be home. I do believe that Miss White is in the mindset and in the environment that Daniel is able to respond positively in, but we just haven't had the opportunity to see that over a longer period of time, unfortunately, than just that three-day weekend. So at this time, I would recommend the proposal of the department being named possessory managing conservator, with Mr. Frost and Miss Butler possessory conservators. And hopefully we can get Daniel into a placement closer to mom where we can begin to further foster that relationship for longer periods of possession and access. And then as well as Mr. Frost, depending on his parole decision that comes about.
All right, thank you, Ms. Seal. And I'd like to hear from Casa.
Just to kind of piggyback off of Sage, we agree. Daniel made some really good strides and made some really good changes, but then it just seems like these last few weeks have been just haywire for him. I've talked to him several times and tried to understand why these behaviors are happening. He just keeps telling me every single time, I just want to go home. I want out of here. I want a normal life. I want to be home with my mom. So I know he wants to be home. I know he loves his mom, and I know Samantha's ready for him to be home. But I do agree that while he's made changes up until these past few weeks, it would be nice to see a little bit more time of unsupervised and a little bit more family therapy to kind of help work out those kinks before we all are completely gone out of their lives. So I think that the finding a placement in Region 3 and getting him closer is hopefully going to help.
Okay, thank y'all. All right, I've got some questions. Ms. Butler, do you work?
Samantha, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So do you work?
Yes, ma'am. I work at Domino's Pizza.
And so what I want to get a feel for is whether we're talking about visits or placement or whatever, that if Daniel was in your home and it's summertime, for instance, because his placement is going to end right about the time the school year is over with. I mean, who would be responsible for looking after him if you had to go to work?
It would be a combination of my dad and my husband.
Okay, so I mean, you feel like you would have supervision for him at all times?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, here's my concern. No matter where we find new placement, that the behaviors are going to continue because I think he's made it crystal clear he's doing it because he wants to go home. And probably no matter where he's going to be placed, I mean, we run the risk of this continued runaway, which is, obviously very dangerous for him. So what I would like to do is I am going to name the Department of Family Protective Services as the permanent managing conservator. We're not done. I don't think our work is done. I'm going to place him with mom. And let's see, I mean, summer is, I think this is a good time to try this transition. And let's see how it goes. And if it doesn't go, then we'll be looking for placement for him. But since we're about to run out of time as it is, I think there's no time like the present to try and see how Daniel does in the home. So, Ms. Beller, what we need from you is you got to be candid with us and open and honest with us about what's going on, how he's really doing, if you're having real issues or problems. I mean, I don't want to put the other two kids in a position where they could suffer any kind of harm. It does concern me. But, but I want everybody to communicate to Daniel. And of course, primarily Miss Seal and Casa, and his caseworker, that him staying at home is very conditioned on him, controlling behaviors, not putting himself in danger, putting his siblings in any kind of danger, and that he can, that he could be moved out of the home just as fast as he's getting placed there. He's 13 years old. He's capable of understanding that. So, I want Daniel to have a very clear understanding that this doesn't mean it's permanent yet. Then, I would like, obviously, then to get Mom and Daniel engaged in, ongoing family therapy in that region. Mr. Alley, I think at some point in time, then I think the case should be transferred.
I agree, Your Honor. And our thought was that it would be easier for me to get it transferred if we had a final disposition. Yep. So I guess my question is kind of a clarification with you. Do you want to do permanent managing conservatorship to department and then placement to Mom, or do you want to do a monitored return to the department, to Mom, and leave the department as temporary?
No.
Okay.
I think I guess I don't. I don't really care one way or the other, quite frankly. If it's easier, if it's easier to go ahead and do the monitored return and then transfer, I don't know. I guess I kind of thought it might be easier to enter a final order and then transfer it.
I think that it would be. I just wanted to make sure that you and I were on the same page. I think that a permanent order, a final order, makes it easier for me to convince Region 3, Tyler, Texas, to accept this as a transfer. So.
Yeah. So, yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Your Honor. I was wondering if in the final order we could just have a provision that Mom needs to keep Dad appraised of mailing address so that he can get his letters to Daniel, and also an order having CPS immediately send the letters that he doesn't even know about to him at Mom's house. Well,
the letters will still be going through the caseworker. So, I don't know that he's got to have Mom's address right now. I don't know how she feels about that, but the letters, we're still going to be involved. So the letters will still go through the caseworker. And Ms. Novak, the ones that you do have, let's try to go ahead and get those to Mom right away. I don't want Daniel placed until school is done. So I assume that's coming pretty quickly.
May I speak, Your Honor?
Yes.
His current school, I believe he's not out until June 6th. And with his behaviors with school, they were trying to schedule a meeting to see if he could be transferred to an alternative school. So he won't be out of school at his current placement until June 6th.
Yeah, but we got to have it placed somewhere by May 30th.
Yes, ma'am. And I believe Samantha said her kids are out of school this week. So their school's already ending for the year, so he wouldn't be able to transfer in to where Mom is.
How is that all going to affect the conclusion of his school year?
I don't know, ma'am.
Is he passing?
He was when I last knew. I haven't had an update from the school if he is or isn't.
Would the school accelerate this, over the next several days in let him try to take whatever tests or do whatever he needs to do to complete before he gets moved?
Don't know. I can ask. I don't know, but I can find out.
I mean, that's just, that's just a double whammy. I mean, if because of the notice and change of placement, he's not going to conclude the school year. That's right. Maybe that could be made up in summer school. But let's see what we can find out about that and see if the school would try to accelerate what he's got to do to show as a complete and finish to the school year.
Well, Your Honor, I have an idea. I don't know if it would work. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Since he has to be moved, because the notice will be up, Ms. Novak did testify about a child watch. If we had to use that for 6 days just to get him through the end of the school year and then place him with mom, I mean, she testified that that's what they would do if they didn't have another placement anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if we have to do that, then we can. I'm just, I'm still concerned about how that may affect school and everything. Because where is he going to be on child watch? Amarillo, Texas, or in Region 3? And I assume it would be in Amarillo, Texas.
It would be in Amarillo. So
yeah. What we really need to do is try to just get him to, to do whatever he needs to do so that he can show a completed end of the school year where he's at. And, if they just won't work with us on it, then I guess we'll just have to figure it out. And if it means summer school, then we'll have to just do that. I don't, that's lousy if they won't work with us on that. That's, I mean, my experience is very little goes on the last week of school. Parties and track meets and, most of the grades are turned in. So surely we can figure out how to get him completed 6 days early. Ms. Hall, do you feel like battling anybody at the school about something like that?
I will definitely do all that I can. I without even having spoken to the school, I feel like they might be willing to work with us. Our last meeting that we had with them, I know they were kind of like, we're at our wits' end. We don't know what else to do. I mean, at the end of the meeting, she was like, I'm begging anybody to give me an idea of something that we can do. So knowing that's where they're at, they might be willing to work with us and see what we can do.
Okay. And Daniel needs to know, you got to do what you got to do to finish school. You got to do these things and then you're going home, but you've got to do these things. You got to quit running away. You got to quit all that nonsense. You got to finish school and then you're going home to mom. Okay. Y'all know where to find me if something comes up that we need to try to figure out. But that's the best idea I have, is if we could just get him completed before June 6th. I mean, well, before May 30th. Okay, both parents to be named possessory conservators. No child support, no medical support. Family therapy, obviously, with Miss White. And yet, I do want, Mr. Frost, I hope you will continue to write letters to him and continue to give him good positive reinforcement. And, we'll make sure that those do get to him. And so, Ms. Novak, at least you know where to send the other ones now. So let's go ahead and get those to Ms. Butler.
May I add something?
Yes, sir.
Is he going to get his letters? Because, I mean, last time me and Samantha and her husband spoke, it was not on good terms. And we ended up going separate ways, and they blocked me from talking to him on the phone and everything. I just want to make sure that if she sends his letters to him, is he going to get them, though? Because, I mean, he hasn't been. When I was writing to him at the last address, he wasn't getting them.
I'll order that he will get the letters, and that as long as they're appropriate. I mean, they'll go through Ms. Novak, and or they could go through his attorney ad litem. But yes, I'm going to order that he get the letters.
Yes, ma'am.
And can someone let him know that there's 5 or 6 letters that are going to be coming, so he doesn't think his father just forgot him?
Yeah, we can explain to him what happened about the mail. That's not hard to do. So, okay, then I appreciate everybody's time this morning. Absolutely, don't hesitate to reach out if we need to get together to resolve something. You know, I know this is somewhat leaving things in sort of a gray area, but I don't know what to do about it today. So let's see what we can get everybody to do. And if y'all need me for something, just let me know. All right. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.